Hello, this is Craig Resnick reporting to you from the ARC's 2015 Orlando Forum. With me today is my special guest, Warren Kurisu, Director of Product Management, Mentor Graphics. How you doing today, Warren?
I'm doing great, thanks, Craig.
You know, you guys are suppliers of embedded solutions to companies that build automation systems, industrial automation systems. What are some of the biggest changes that you're seeing this year?
There's quite a few changes, and really where they're rooted at is the global competition is increasing and access to technology is very widespread. And the way that is really showing itself with our customers is they're looking for more and new ways to differentiate their products from their competitors' products. And they're also looking at ways to provide value propositions around reduction of capital expenses and operational expenses to their customers. So they are definitely seeking new technology paths that will enable and support their business objectives.
You know, following up with that, in what ways, as you're leveraging modern systems on a chip, sometimes called SoCs, how does that make life easier or more difficult for the industrial automation companies?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking that. The technology is really changing quite a bit, and these new processors coming out are providing means by which the manufacturers of equipment can help achieve their goals of differentiated and reducing costs. And what I mean by that is that these multi-core chips enable consolidation. Now, as you know, many of these systems for years have been single-core processors running a single operating system, very purpose-built for whatever they do. And then the industry moved to multi-core processors, homogeneous multi-core processors, so the same cores. And now what's happened is that these systems have become extremely complex, these system-on-chip architectures, where they're now combining heterogeneous cores. They might have application cores combined with microcontroller cores, maybe combined with FPGA fabrics. And it provides a very rich palette of technology by which these manufacturers can begin to consolidate their devices. And these are a means of differentiating their products and also reducing capital and operational expenses. Now, that's the good news, right? Now, the really hard thing is when a system designer looks at an SoC, they see a bunch of different options, but they don't know what they should be doing with the SoC. So if you have different types of operating systems on this SoC, maybe some Linux running on a microprocessor, maybe some real-time operating system, or just a simple application running on microcontroller, how do they architect the system? How do they build the system with that? How do they boot the system? How do they get these things to be able to communicate with each other? So this is in some of the ways that the world has become a lot more difficult for these developers. The problem to be solved is all the stuff I talked about. It's how do you combine heterogeneous operating systems on heterogeneous multi-core SoCs and have the tooling to be able to develop and debug and analyze what's going on from a system perspective.
Well, then I guess is security going to be more of an issue in this consolidated world?
It absolutely is. In the non-consolidated world, what ended up happening is developers would be building a unique device, a separate, discrete device that maybe does security. And that's the security gateway into the device. So when there was a connection, it would typically be guarded by some sort of guard. When you start consolidating things now, you might want to consolidate that security part into it as well. And because it's all integrated, if there's any sort of breach in the security, then access to the rest of the system is very easy because these SoCs have a bunch of shared things on it. It has shared memory, shared caches, shared devices, shared graphics. There's all sorts of different shared things on these SoCs. So that's one of the ways security becomes a lot more of an important consideration when you get into a consolidated world.
Mm-hmm. Now, we certainly know IoT, big buzzword everywhere you turn, even certainly at the forum here. What's your view on the industrial Internet of Things?
Well, I think the Internet of Things, when I talk to customers, is not really new. A lot of manufacturers have been working on connectivity for decades. And I think the thing that's changing with the industrial Internet of Things, I think there's a couple things. One of them is down at the device level. The intelligence that can be built into these devices in terms of being able to gather data, to be able to process that data to make some decisions kind of lower down into the devices is new. I think that's all new capability. And then what you do with that data as you feed it up into the enterprise is also new. The other thing that's new is the use of the internet to enable remote access of this data to make decision-making process a lot more widespread and accessible is also new. So the industrial Internet of Things, I think, at its core, hasn't really, it's not totally new, but it is new kind of at the cloud end and at the device intelligence end. The other thing is that the manufacturers are now looking for ways to extend that data into the supply chain. So they're extending data out to partners, extending data out to customers, and it's this data that's flowing through the network that becomes a lot more important. So in Mentor, we invest heavily to make sure the connectivity from the bottom up into the enterprise is all enabled as part of our solutions to help solve these new emerging problems in the industrial Internet of Things.
Last question. There's this debate in the industrial automation world about whether it's more beneficial to own the entire solution. Sometimes people refer to that as roll your own, or outsource the solution to commercial vendors. Do you see this changing?
We do see it changing, and it's really driven by business decision making. Every company is struggling for resources. Everybody is trying to do more than the resource to do. A lot of the stuff that happens kind of at the lower end, the operating systems, if you go back to this discussion I had earlier about heterogeneous operating systems, where you have a Linux and an RTOS and other things, and you need graphics and you need tooling. In the past, a lot of people would just roll all their own, but that, in a way, you could think of it almost as plumbing, right? They're spending a lot of time, or the foundation of your house, you're spending a lot of time on the foundation, and you don't necessarily see the benefit, the differentiation on top. So what we're seeing now is a trend across markets, actually, industrial automation included, where the decision-making process is actually driving toward more commercial enablement at the lower layers, which allows these companies to spend their scarce resources to build differentiated IP, differentiated applications, differentiated value add in general on top of it. So the question about roll your own versus commercial, I definitely see that changing, and it's really driven by what these companies need to do in terms of the best ROI on their engineering and other investments.
Okay, Warren, thank you so much for being here today. It was very interesting.
You're welcome, Craig.
We've been speaking today to Warren Kurisu from Mentor Graphics. This is Craig Resnick from the 2015 ARC Orlando Forum. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.